This is the story of a shattered sanctuary, an unprecedented midnight security sweep, and a mother forced to abandon decades of aristocratic protocol to beg for mercy. In less than 24 hours, the illusion of Queen Camilla's absolute power evaporated, replaced by the staggering realization that she actually owns nothing. What Camilla just realized behind closed doors, as elite police units descended upon her private estate, is that the crown does not forget, and Prince William does not forgive. This video will unpack the secret power grab she attempted in the shadows, how the Prince of Wales and the fiercely loyal Princess Anne uncovered her paper trail, the silent institutional retaliation that followed, and the devastating moment Camilla realized she was trapped in a gilded cage built entirely by her own ambition. To understand the magnitude of this sudden humiliating collapse, we must first look at the empire Camilla believed she had meticulously constructed. For 30 years, she played the longest and most dangerous psychological game in modern royal history. She weathered the storm of global public hatred, methodically chipping away at the lingering legacy of Princess Diana, and positioning herself as the indispensable controlling power behind King Charles. She navigated the transition from the most reviled woman in Britain to queen consort with a ruthless, quiet efficiency. In her mind, she had the king completely managed. Her confidence had grown so vast that she began to push the boundaries of royal tradition, elevating her non-royal children Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes into the inner sanctum of the monarchy. She orchestrated their presence at highly sensitive family gatherings, slowly testing the waters of their proximity to the throne. Right up until the moment the Metropolitan Special Forces breached her perimeter in Wiltshire, Camilla felt utterly untouchable. She believed she was the untouchable architect of a new royal era, operating above the consequences that governed everyone else. But absolute power often masks a profound commercial desperation. Behind the dazzling crown jewels, the state banquets, and the billion-dollar public relations machinery, Camilla knows a cold, unyielding truth. She controls no sovereign wealth. She owns none of the ancient lucrative duchies. When King Charles is gone, her survival, her status, and her financial security will depend entirely on the goodwill of a stepson who has spent a lifetime silently mourning the mother she replaced. This underlying anxiety, this terrifying lack of actual ownership, triggered a desperate clandestine maneuver. The focal point of this secret power grab was Raymill House, purchased in 1996 following her highly publicized and humiliating divorce. This sprawling 19th-century estate in Wiltshire was always much more than just a house. It was her fortress. It was the only tangible asset where she set the rules, completely free from the crushing weight of Windsor protocol. It was the sanctuary where Tom and Laura grew up, heavily insulated from the bitter fallout of the Diana saga. More importantly, it was located immediately adjacent to a £3 million property recently purchased by the king himself using his private funds, creating a highly sensitive royal perimeter. In a highly calculated move shielded from public scrutiny and devoid of any royal press release, Camilla quietly transferred the legal ownership of Raymill House. Land registry documents were expertly altered in the shadows, placing the property into a complex trust arrangement where her children, specifically Tom Parker Bowles, became the actual beneficial owners. It was a staggering exploitation of her current status. It was an attempt to siphon a royal stronghold out of the institutional grasp and secure a private, untouchable financial dynasty for her bloodline before the political winds shifted and William took the throne. She assumed the sprawling bureaucracy of the Crown Estate was simply too vast to notice one administrative shift in the quiet countryside of Wiltshire. That was a fatal miscalculation. The modern monarchy, now heavily influenced by the fiercely protective oversight of Prince William and the ironclad traditionalism of Princess Anne, operates with forensic precision. What looked like a routine administrative update was actually a total dismantling of her empire. During a standard review of Crown security perimeters, land boundaries, and adjacent estate holdings, auditors heavily linked to the Prince of Wales's office flagged a glaring anomaly. The hidden paper trail exposed the discreet transfer. But it was not merely the transfer of real estate that triggered the alarms deep within the palace. It was the severe implication of who now legally controlled a heavily secured zone physically connected to the king's private investments. Tom Parker Bowles is a man with deep established ties to elite media, culinary, and literary circles. He is a man William and his most trusted aides had long suspected of being a well-connected gossip, a potential conduit for unauthorized palace leaks at a time when information is the most valuable currency in the monarchy. To William, the idea that Tom Parker Bowles was now the beneficial owner of a strategic royal perimeter was an unacceptable security threat. It was a direct insult to the uncomplaining sacrifice of Catherine, who has always respected the institutional boundaries that Camilla was now actively trying to bypass. The intelligence quickly reached William's desk. The reaction was not a screaming match in the corridors of Buckingham Palace. It was a cold institutional execution. William did not leak a story to the tabloids. He weaponized the administrative machinery of the state. Within days, an extraordinary and terrifying operation was launched. Metropolitan Special Forces, specifically the highly elite Royalty and Specialist Protection Command, were dispatched to Raymill House. This was not a routine police welfare check or a standard local patrol. The deployment of elite tactical units to a property deeply associated with the Queen Consort is a move of staggering institutional aggression. They descended on the estate to conduct a comprehensive, inescapable security and information audit. The message was unmistakable. The Crown was aggressively reclaiming its jurisdiction. Every piece of communication, every financial document stored on site, and every visitor log suddenly fell under the relentless forensic scrutiny of the state apparatus. Camilla's private sanctuary was conceptually ripped open. The visual humiliation of heavily equipped police vehicles parked on the gravel driveway of her pristine, carefully guarded refuge carried devastating, deeper meaning. It proved that her title, her crown, and her influence over the king offered absolutely zero protection against the sovereign administrative authority that William now wields. Her untouchable access was metaphorically revoked. The portrait of her absolute control was taken out of the frame and smashed into pieces. That detail matters. It was not a personal attack. It was an enforcement of protocol, which is exactly why it was so impossible for Camilla to defend against. The realization of her sudden powerlessness hit Camilla with crushing force. Stripped of her defenses and watching her meticulously planned financial safety net unravel in real time, she broke the most fundamental rule of royal survival. She panicked, bypassing the sophisticated network of private secretaries, royal aides, and the established chain of command. A frantic Camilla reached out directly to Prince William. The words she spoke echoed with the raw, terrifying realization of a mother completely cornered by a system she thought she had mastered. She reportedly begged the heir to the throne to spare her son. She pleaded with raw emotion that Tom was not a threat, that he did not deserve to be targeted and treated like a criminal by the vast security apparatus of the state. But as she waited for a response from the man whose mother she had systematically replaced, the silence radiating from William's camp was deafening. The trap had entirely snapped shut. The administrative trick she thought would quietly secure her family's future had instead handed William the exact legal and security justification he needed to sever her son from the royal orbit completely, not because he was acting out of petty revenge, but because he was ruthlessly protecting the integrity of the crown. And as the grim reality of the Special Forces raid set in, and the walls of the institution began to close around her, Camilla was forced to turn toward the one man she believed could still override William's absolute command. She turned to King Charles. For 3 decades, King Charles was her ultimate shield. He defied his mother, his nation, and his own sons to place the crown on her head. He had spent millions of pounds from his private funds to buy the land surrounding Raymill House, specifically to protect her sanctuary. So when a frantic Camilla presented him with the reality of the midnight security sweep, expecting the king to unleash his imperial fury and override William's directive, what she received instead was the most devastating response possible: silence. Charles did nothing. He did not summon the Prince of Wales for a reprimand. He did not order the Metropolitan Police to stand down. He listened to his wife's desperate plea for her son, and he offered no intervention. This is the psychological climax of the entire saga. Charles is an aging monarch caught squarely between the emotional demands of the woman he loves and the cold, undeniable logic of his heir. William did not act illegally. He acted strictly on protocol. If Charles were to overrule a legitimate security audit executed by the state apparatus to protect a non-royal stepson, he would directly undermine the very crown he wears. Charles's silence was not an act of malice against Camilla. It was an act of profound capitulation to William. The king chose the preservation of the institution over the protection of his wife's private empire. That is where the story changes forever. That deafening silence exposed the terrifying reality of Camilla's commercial desperation. Let us unpack the truth about what she actually owns. The public sees a woman draped in priceless diamonds, chauffeured in state vehicles, living in palaces that stretch for miles. But behind the dazzling public relations machinery, Camilla is merely a tenant of the crown. The Duchy of Cornwall, the billion-dollar real estate and investment portfolio that funds the vast royal apparatus, belongs entirely to Prince William. The Duchy of Lancaster belongs strictly to the sovereign. The crown jewels, the royal residences, the private art collections, the fleets of cars, they belong to the state or the monarch. Camilla possesses virtually zero sovereign wealth. If Charles were to pass away tomorrow, her survival, her status, and her financial security would depend entirely on the goodwill of a stepson who has spent a lifetime silently mourning the mother she replaced. She would be reliant on an allowance dictated by King William V. This is why Raymill House mattered so much. It was her only independent collateral. Her desperate, quiet attempt to transfer its ownership to her children was the ultimate proof that she knew her time at the top was running out. She realized she was a billionaire in optics, but entirely bankrupt in actual untouchable power. William's silent execution of the Raymill raid was not just about securing a physical perimeter. It was a profound restoration of the natural royal order. It was a ruthless dismantling of the illusion that Camilla's family would somehow merge into the Windsor bloodline. By flagging the paper trail and sending in the special forces, William sent a message that echoed through the centuries-old corridors of the palace: the era of manipulation. The era of backdoor deals that caused his late mother, Princess Diana, so much agonizing paranoia is officially over. And standing silently beside William in this new order is Catherine. The contrast here is devastating. While Camilla scrambles for legal loopholes and secret trusts to secure a future for her children, the Princess of Wales has spent over a decade quietly, uncomplainingly mastering the very institution Camilla tried to bypass. Catherine does not need to hide property transfers in the Wiltshire countryside. She is the mother of the future king. Her power is absolute because it is legitimate, earned through unyielding loyalty and personal sacrifice. William's aggressive protection of the crown's boundaries is in essence an aggressive protection of Catherine's future reign. He is ensuring that when his wife becomes queen, she will not have to share the stage, the resources or the institutional power with the remnants of the Parker Bowles ambition. Notice the subtle shifts that have occurred since the raid. What viewers and royal insiders have noticed is highly telling. Protocol, which had been gently bent for years to accommodate Camilla's family at private events, has suddenly become rigid. Small symbolic changes are happening in plain sight. A portrait featuring Tom Parker Bowles, once discreetly placed in a secondary drawing room at Clarence House, was quietly moved out of the public eye and into storage. Access codes to certain administrative wings, once freely granted to Camilla's most trusted private aides, have been quietly revoked and placed under the direct authorization of the Prince of Wales's office. These are not accidents. They are the forensic proof of shifting power. They are the silent administrative executions that carry more weight than any tabloid headline. William is steadily closing the doors, locking down the access points, and enforcing a strict, impenetrable boundary between the Windsor legacy and outside opportunists. Queen Camilla may still wear the crown. She may still wave from the balcony, smiling flawlessly for the cameras projecting the image of a woman entirely at ease. But the absolute power she thought she wielded has been exposed as a mirage. The raid on Raymill House was her ultimate institutional reckoning. It proved that in the high-stakes warfare of the British monarchy, you cannot outsmart the system indefinitely. The crown always wins, and it is becoming devastatingly clear that Prince William now controls the crown. As the transition of power silently accelerates behind palace walls, the coming months will define the future of the monarchy. If you want to understand the real mechanisms of royal survival, beyond the polished press releases and the tabloid noise, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Leave a comment below on how you think King Charles will handle the tightening grip of his heir. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next breakdown.